Hello, friends. Welcome back to 1D10T Does Stuff, and I'm the 1D10T in charge, Trevor Stewart 1308. And we're going to be reading from Inflamed, Deep Medicine and the Anatomy of Injustice by Rupa, Marya, and Raj Patel. A very, I would say, oh gosh. The word I would use just slipped out of my head. It's a very applicable to present day text. There's a specific word that I wish to use that just completely escaped me, but oh well. That's life. Let's start, of course, with today's ad read, pre-rolls, brought to you by The Hidden Leaf, downtown Charlottesville, 105 West Main Street, above the bricks, on the downtown mall, above the bricks, Suite 200, between the Green Cauldron and Hamilton's. A great place to go with some great buds to get some great buds, a bud, and the only thing better than their bud is their customer service. Also, they do have the lowest prices in town, according to my own personally highly biased research, by which I mean I was incredibly high when I did my biased research. A note of disclosure's the wrong word, but I've been using it so far, so I'm going to use it again. A note of disclosure, this is a politically oriented stream. We will be talking about socio-political topics, and I will be expressing my social and political opinions. These opinions belong to me, the label, and the network, but not necessarily any of our advertisers, including The Hidden Leaf, the Kush Gang, purveyors of fine edibles and drinkables, and Firehouse Craft Farm. They are businesses and do not necessarily have their own political, or have political opinions because of that. So, that being said, let me explain the purpose of these Tuesday streams / videos. These are building up to me being able to have the language to explain why I think broadly marginalized people face an extreme amount of, at best, indifference, at worst, danger from the medical institutions in the United States. Hello, Just Me Crystal. Thank you for joining us. Great to see you. Mwah. That is broadly marginalized people, but specifically, I am building up to being able to explain why I think that Black women face an inordinately large amount of danger from the behavioral and mental health institutions in the United States. And right now, we are getting background. We have been getting background for the past year plus, closer to 2 years, I guess. I don't even want to think about how long I've been doing this, actually. We're getting background to be able to put into words our opinions. So we have been reading books that have been leading us in that direction. And right now, the book that we're working on is Inflamed, Deep Medicine and the Anatomy of Injustice by Rupa, Marya, and Raj Patel. This book is this book is drawing a parallel between the environment in which we live, i.e., the exposome, and the environment inside of our bodies, i.e., the biome. And what this book is, this parallel is being highlighted through inflammation, as in the title. But it's not only drawing this parallel, but also showing us how these two things are intricately linked. How the exposome is affected by our behavior, and how the exposome affects our biome. How our behavior causes inflammation in the world around us. And that inflammation in the world around us causes further inflammation in us. Or if not causing further inflammation, does nothing to help alleviate the inflammation that we cause in ourselves. That is what I am getting from this book. That, and this book talks a lot about colonialism, colonization, and the colonial mindset. And how that, the extractive practices of colonialism and and industrialization are a large part of what not only cause inflammation in the exposome, but also cause marginalized people to face the largest dangers first. Mainly Black, Indigenous, and people of color, represented by the acronym BIPOC, BIPOC. Now, and I think it is important to, while this subset is a good subset to look at, I also think that it is important to differentiate between Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Because in America, in the United States of America especially, your status in the world, your status in the society is quite often defined by your adjacentness to whiteness. And Black is what is considered to be the least adjacent to white. Ergo, Indigenous and people of color, Indigenous people as well as people of color, face their own situations in the societal hierarchy. I am not at all trying to stratify the oppression hierarchy here. I really do just wish to say that every different subset of marginalized people get treated differently, have their own situation that they have to face. One of the reasons I think that black women specifically face the most danger, though, is because of the societal ramifications of the systemic dehumanization of black people, and specifically black women, in the United States, in order to support the abhorrent behavior of the abhorrent behavior of slavery. I do feel like, again, I don't want to compare anyone's suffering. That is not fair to anyone. Especially from my apparent position. However, I would also like to point out that my apparent position isn't my real position. I know I look like I should be a member of the most privileged class in America. However, I'm really not. And after a few minutes of talking to me, they can usually tell. They can tell that I'm not like them. However, also, I will say that that initial appearance gives me a whole lot of privilege. So, from that position, I really don't want to be comparing people's suffering. Because it's... I don't have the position to do that. And I don't think anybody does. And B, I don't want to invalidate anyone's suffering by saying someone else's suffering is greater. I don't want to invalidate anyone's suffering other than those specifically at the top of the power structure hierarchy. Their suffering really means very little to me. At least at the moment. It will mean more when they've done more of it and when their suffering is not their own making. All of the suffering in the world at this point, even the flooding and the fires, if not preventable by society, they are actively made by societies. And I feel like if we gave up on the two things that are really running society, then we'd stop making problems for each other. And I feel like I want to say those two things are patriarchy and capitalism. However, and you know, I do think that patriarchy is responsible for the toxic masculinity that leads us into a lot of wars, a lot of conflicts. But I don't actually think that that is what leads us to think that we can shape the world in our own image. I think that that is this idea of manifest destiny and the prosperity gospel. Which I also think are both doing a lot of harm to the world. And I don't think it's only the Christian version of the prosperity gospel that's doing harm to the world. I think all three of the Abrahamic religions, as well as a few of the non-Abrahamic religions, have their own versions of the prosperity gospel that are leading to not only the prosperity gospel, but the manifest destiny mindset that are leading to these global conflicts that are not necessary anymore. I think there are even secular, secular, yeah, secular means earthly, non-secular means churchish, I think. I'm gonna have to look that up. Bear with me, friends, while we make sure that I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, secular. There's a secular version of manifest destiny in the prosperity gospel, and that secular version is what nations like Russia, people like Putin, are using to push their agenda of dominance. You know, it's not just the religions that are doing this. And I think that these ideas at their core are are what are degrading all of the global society and making it impossible for us to reach some sort of utopian ideal where we are living in harmony with our environment, with ourselves, and with each other, and we no longer have to worry about causing inflammation in our environment and thusly our environment causing inflammation in us. I think that we have the ability to reach a utopian global society, but we have to give up on these capitalist, patriarchal, and hegemonic ideas about possession of other people, possession of goods being linked to our self-worth. This idea that possession of power means anything. We can get to a Star Trek utopian world if we try. There's still time. But right now, I think we need to be looking backwards at what got us to where we are. And that's why I'm reading these books. That's part of why I'm reading these books. Again, this is also as a warning about where we are right now. Let us not mistake where we are. Yes, we have seen an incredible amount of progress in my lifetime. However, that progress is also steadily being undone. But also, we may have come a long ways, but we're nowhere near the end. We're nowhere near even really a resting point. And I know we're all exhausted about this. It's an exhausting battle, but it can't be stopped. This can't be stopped because if we stop pushing for social equality, social and socio-political equality across the board, if we ever stop pushing for it, it will be taken away from us. The most vulnerable of us first. You know, we blinked and got Trump. We blinked again and we got Trump again. I feel like for people who have my level of privilege, we need to stop blinking. We need to keep doing stuff and taking this on because, again, not to judge anyone else's marginalization, but in my opinion, those of us with the most privilege need to do the most work. That's why I believe that we need to be, those of us with privilege need to be setting up mutual aid and community-driven services. And that's why we here at Nikwork Entertainment are going to start working on something. I don't know what, but something. Yeah, it's... I've... Getting back to the environmental exposome versus biome part of this, I've actually been part of environmental activism my entire life, but I've actively been a part of environmental activism since middle school, really. You know, I've in my middle school / high school, there were opportunities to be involved with environmental organizations. The school itself had an environmental organization, probably still does. I haven't checked in a while. And we were pretty active in the local environmental activism scene. I don't feel like we did a whole lot of good. Looking at where the world ended up. And we were operating under the assumption, the assumptions of the day, which were that environmentalism was it was something that we were each individually responsible for. That it wasn't necessarily so much a systemic problem. But I've come to see how much more of a systemic problem it's ever been than we've ever known. How things like recycling and composting, while good and good for the soul, aren't gonna be the answers at all to the problem. Driving less, not gonna be the answer to the problem. Better gas mileage, still not quite it. I mean, you're starting to get into systemic solutions. Electric vehicles. There you're starting to get into much greater systemic solutions. But EVs bring their whole own set of problems. However, if we stopped marginalizing people, fighting with each other, and trying to amass power and wealth over amassing goodwill and friends, we would be in a position to figure out these solutions much more quickly than we are. A vote for Trevor Stewart 1308 in 2028. Yeah. A vote for Trevor Stewart 1308 in 2028 is a vote for everything that's right in the world. A vote against evil. I like that slogan. A vote for Trevor Stewart 1308 in 2028 is a vote for everything that's right in the world and a vote against evil. I think that will be our official running slogan. I might as well take this opportunity to announce my fake candidacy for president in 2028. I mean, why the heck not? I'm not a convicted felon. And even if I were, I could still get in, apparently. I'm not just a naturalized citizen. I am a citizen. In fact, both of my parents are at least second generation citizens. So we're not riding in on birthright citizenship or anything. We're real citizens. Certainly have a longer history of citizenship in America than our current president. I would also be happy to release all of my tax documents to show the world how much taxes I'm paying, to show the world that I don't get a tax return, that I pay taxes, all of my taxes, every year. Yeah. There we go. I'm running for president. Trevor Stewart, 1308, running for president in 2028. Why the heck not? It's as crazy as anything else that's going on in my life right now, so let's just lean into the insanity and do our thing, huh? And I'm running under the Vadarian Leftist Party. If you're gonna vote for a dictator, why not vote for a good one? I promise I'll be a lot better at it than the current president. I mean, why disguise what I'm actually running as? All right. Now that we've got some comedy, some background out of the way here, one of the other things about this book is that it is using the human body as an allegory for the outside world. And that is its method of drawing these parallels. So let's just hop right in. We are starting a new chapter today. Today's chapter is Chapter 7, the endocrine system. Here we go. So that you guys will actually be able to read along with me. See what I'm talking about. The endocrine system. Building a new normal. Human beings are not built in silence, but in word, in work, in action, reflection. Saying that word is not privilege of some few persons, but the right of everyone. Dialogue is the encounter in which the united reflection and action of the dialoguers are addressed to the world, which is to be transformed and humanized. This dialogue cannot be reduced to the act of one person's depositing ideas in another, nor can it become a simple exchange of ideas to be consumed by the discussants. I don't think I like the word discussant. It is an act of creation. It must not be served as a crafty instrument for the domination of one person by another. Men and women who lack humility or have lost it cannot come to the people, cannot be their partners in naming the world. For the truly humanist educator and the authentic revolutionary, the object of action is the reality to be transformed by them together with other people. Paulo Freire. If you've been lucky enough, and I do mean lucky, if you've been lucky enough to take a relaxing vacation away from your home, you've experienced a little of what it's like for your body to be in a different relationship to the world around you. For the duration of the exposure to a holiday, markers of inflammation fall, telomeres are maintained, and healthy cell metabolism increases. This vacation effect fades as we return to our routine exposures of stress and unhealthy routine, but the effect is real nonetheless. Vacation effect. I have a lot of interest in the behavior of telomeres. Oddly enough, and the reason is because I created the idea of a superhero, a comic book superhero, anti-hero really, who has an exceptionally weak immune system, but whose telomeres don't degrade at all. So they essentially are a walking plague of viruses and bacterium, but they can't die. It doesn't kill them. It won't kill them. It won't take them out. They just carry every disease. Not that there's a bit of self-reflection in that. Ooh, this looks good. There are ways of making a vacation stick. Allow your body and mind to connect more deeply to your new environment by leaving your phone behind. Meditate. Most of all, get outdoors and engage with the web of life. For most people with multiple sclerosis and an inflammatory autoimmune disease of the central nervous system, a nature and meditation retreat left participants feeling better at statistically significant levels 5 years after attending. One of my dearest friends has multiple sclerosis. And her mother also had it, and I think her mother before her had it. And I remember when I knew her mother when I was younger, when I was a younger adult. It's not like I remember her mother being a vital and active person. And I remember meeting her again later in life, and she was not. And multiple sclerosis had stolen her body from her. Not her mind. She was still sharp as ever. But this active, sharp mind was stuck in this prison of a dysfunctional body. And I know that this hell awaits my friend as well. And I hurt for her because of that. I hurt with her because of that. I hurt knowing that. It's not fun. She has managed to mitigate the effects for a good amount of time by having a child. She did not have a child in order to mitigate the effects of multiple sclerosis. Geez, that was hard to say. But it turns out that having a child can mitigate the effects. For very few people permanently, I think, but for most people temporarily. So yeah, that's my connection to MS. Our bodies have evolved a kind of innate intelligence, the capacity to synchronize with the world around us, the air we breathe, the microbial life in the soil, the rhythm of sunrise and nightfall, affection from a partner, and the pressure of work. Our histories, our stories, and our languages modulate the tempos of our bodies. When your exposome changes and your body adjusts to its new environment, it's the endocrine system, a liquid network of chemical messengers that is playing a central role in this recalibration. Stimuli from the world are transplanted into molecular conversations between our cells and our organs, leading to coordinated responses that can leave us in good health or suffering in illness. The U.S. military is a good student of human biology. During the War on Terror, they made it official policy to use the body's rhythms against itself. Guantanamo derives from the name Teano, People called the bay of what is now Cuba. Columbus, on his second voyage, renamed it Puerto Grande. The British, in 1741, renamed it Cumberland. Every time I see Cumberland, I have to stop myself from saying Cucumberland. I can't help it. Whenever the song comes on, gotta get down to the Cucumberland mine, where I mainly spend my time. I just can't. It's Cucumberland. I can't stop myself. Just like in video games, I'm not over encumbered, I'm over encumbered. I don't understand it. Cumberland Harbor. Spain continued to govern the island until the Spanish-American War in 1898. Part of the U.S. peace treaty involved the U.S. payment of a lease from the newly independent Cuban government for land around Guantanamo. Post-revolution Cuba has cashed the check for $4,085 just once in error. On the bay is located the U.S. Guantanamo Bay Naval Base, including a detention facility where doctors and psychologists are experimenting with ways human bodies can self-destruct. In the time since the publishing of this book, there has been, especially in the past, 6 months, year, there's been some activity at Guantanamo Bay. Threats to deport illegal immigrants there from the administration currently ruling the country. There have been, there just been some activity there. I don't want to go into all of it because I'm not sure I can even remember all of what's going on at Gitmo. Mohammed Jawad's family report that he was 12 when he was detained in 2002 in the wake of the 9/11 attacks. At the camp, Jawad was subjected to enhanced interrogation techniques, tortures defined by the U.S. government as safe, legal, ethical, and effective. Among them was a practice dubbed the Frequent Flyer Program in official documents, although the government denied its existence. In May 2004, he was moved from cell to cell 112 times in over 14 days. Once every 2 hours and 15 minutes, more often at night, in order to maximize sleep deprivation. At hearing about his treatment, a Harvard sleep expert testified over a video link. At a hearing about his treatment, a Harvard sleep expert testified over video link. Jawad asked why the expert was needed. They should give me time to talk about my sleeplessness instead, he said. In a reprise of the logic of the witch trials, his voice and his testimony about his own body and experiences didn't matter. Just saying. Under normal circumstances, our body's sleep rhythms are determined by an axis that runs from the eyes to the pineal gland situated deep in the brain. When the sun is out and the light enters our eyes, the pineal gland suppresses the production of melatonin and continues to create serotonin. a hormone that helps buffer our mental resilience. When the sun sets and darkness surrounds us, an enzyme converts serotonin to melatonin, which is released into the bloodstream. This anti-inflammatory hormone coordinates the sympathy of neurochemistry that results in restorative sleep. The pineal gland releases melatonin throughout the night. It serves as a principal biological clock in mammals. All right. I didn't really think about this link between serotonin and melatonin. But it makes a lot of sense. Why someone who doesn't have a whole lot of serotonin isn't going to have a lot of serotonin to convert to melatonin. And the fact that I'm pretty sure that I don't have a lot of serotonin, that, I know that I have a lot of environmental factors for depression. A lot of things in the environment around me that make me unhappy. Not just in the immediate environment necessarily, but in my own historical environment. There's a lot for me to be depressed about. But I think it might also be true that I don't produce a whole lot of serotonin. Or that my serotonin production is quite often suppressed. I have always had a hard time falling asleep and a hard time staying asleep. Sometimes I am a very deep sleeper, but only when I am truly exhausted. However, quite often, the only way for me to fall asleep is to become truly exhausted. I take things to help. NGL. I better living through chemistry. I take things to help fall asleep because I know what it's like for me to be awake all the time. I can do it. I can be awake for a day or two at a time before the exhaustion takes me out. But it's not fun. It can be really difficult on my system. Even if it only happens once or twice a week, it's not good. So I think there's a bit of explanation for me about something. Melatonin is also made in immune cells, in the gut, in the glands, in the bone marrow, in the placenta, and in our skin. Our skin creates a whole suite of other hormones, including endorphins. Our body's endogenous pain reliever. And vitamin D, another anti-inflammatory hormone whose best effects cannot be replicated by simply popping a pill. New understandings of skin are framing it as an endocrine organ. Really? Who'da done thunk that? Demonstrating once again how antiquated concepts of anatomy fail to describe the intertwined relationships within our own bodies. Deprivation of both sleep and sun disrupts melatonin production, knocking biological time out of synchronization with astronomical time. For actual frequent flyers, flight attendants, for example, low levels of melatonin have been linked to higher rates of breast cancer. Yikes. I don't feel any lumps at the moment. I'm really attached to my little A and a half cups. I mean, they may not be much, but they're perky and they're mine. I would hate to lose them because of bad sleep. I think using this highlighter again for that second section is fine because I feel like the two sections are very well linked. The importance of melatonin to health reveals that the immune, endocrine, and nervous system share a common chemical vocabulary. This is an anti-inflammatory molecule. This anti-inflammatory molecule has multiple functions across these systems, behaving like a neurotransmitter, a hormone, or a cytokine, depending on what secretes it. Not secrets, secretes. A nerve cell, a gland, or a cell in the periphery. And where it acts between nerve cells in a distant organ, locally or systemically. At a molecular level, melatonin inhibits the production of reactive oxygen species, protecting tissues from damage. A sidebar on that last thing, for those who don't know or remember, it's the reactive oxygens that cause oxidation, essentially burning. Burning is rapid inflammation. The linked etymology of the names ought to give a bit of a clue. Now, the reactive oxygen, rapid, or not even rapid, but oxidization, reacting with oxygen is what damages stuff. Hello, Pequeñito. Oh, hello, my little guy. You gonna go join the others? You gonna eat first? Cat walks right through. Just like, I don't really care what's up. It also stops the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines, pushing back the onset of progression of inflammation. In animal models, it has been shown to help restore homeostasis in the face of overwhelming inflammation of septic shock. During the Ebola outbreak, melatonin emerged as a useful treatment because it targets the inflammation that leads to the life-threatening hemorrhaging seen in this disease. During the COVID pandemic, melatonin supplements led to a 30% reduction in testing positive for the virus. It is being explored as an adjuvant treatment to counteract the profound inflammation seen in critical COVID cases. Very alliterative. It is one of the human body's most effective antioxidants, reducing the damage wreaked by oxidative stress. Intriguingly, melatonin is also present in fruits, seeds, vegetables, and grains, serving a similarly protective role. This versatile molecule appears to be present across the web of life. I'm sorry, do I have things in your way? There you go. Not slick. There's a reason I didn't name any of you Grace. This versatile molecule appears to be present across the web of life. Sleep deprivation torture deprives the human body of melatonin. It activates our cells' damage response pathways, leading to development of sentience-associated secretory phenotype. What? Sentience-associated secretory phenotype. That pro-inflammatory cytokine profile that we discussed in Chapter 1. This process is casually linked to the accelerated biological aging. Rats totally deprived of sleep die within 11 to 32 days. Reactive oxidative stress caused by sleep deprivation plays a damaging role. Over time, sleep deprivation of the kind Jawad was subjected to leads to shorter telomeres and other forms of internal damage. As a form of torture, it doesn't leave visible marks on the skin, but ignites the body to consume itself through systemic inflammation, resulting in decreased longevity. This most toxic exposome of the torture chambers of Gitmo Bay reveals what we might be facing, not under the eyes of torturers and doctors, but under the dysfunctional rhythms of the open prison of everyday life in colonial capitalist society. Okay. I didn't really see that analogy coming. I really just thought we were about to just talk about how awful people can be. But comparing our daily lives to torture Sounds like the kind of thing I'd say. Proof. Proof. Proof that daily life is torture. Descartes thought the connection between the material and the spiritual world lay in the pineal gland, the principal seat of the soul. While he was clearly wrong about this, he was right to sense that the system of glands and hormones have a kind of alchemical power. The pineal gland may not be the bridge between matter and mind, but the endocrine system of which it is a part can transmute cell phone light into inflammation and chronic stress into diabetes. Wow. You know what we say about Descartes around here. And we'll get to that in just a moment. I do feel like this is worth highlighting, especially because I like it. Rene Descartes walked into a bar. Bartender said, "Oh, would you like a beer, Rene?" And Descartes said, "I think not." Poof! For Rene Descartes, 'twas a drunken fart. I drink, therefore I am. And I think we will hold off on liquid anatomy. Oh, that does not sound pleasant. It sounds like the goo that is in a cocoon as a caterpillar is turning into a butterfly. 'Cause apparently, it's not no, it's a liquid anatomy. There's no structure in there. It's just liquid anatomy. Ew. Just, ew. I don't like those two words together. That's gross. Ugh. Well, we will carry on next week with liquid anatomy. This book has just had some of the more gross stuff for me to deal with. I'm really surprised that this book has hit spots where I'm like, just, ew, brother, ew. It is a ride, Crystal. Yes, it is. I mean, it is an emotional ride in what it's talking about. But every now and again, it just throws in a combination of words or a concept that I just find absolutely gross out disgusting. Not, socially disgusting or politically disgusting, but like gross out. Like, oh God, I'm going to throw up in my mouth a little, kind of gross. Well, as that's where we are calling it in for the day, I'm going to say, I'm going to say that what we're beginning to find out about the endocrine system is very interesting. And I do think that, in a very sort of scientific way, it's sort of where we find the ability to cross the line from physical to faith. It seems to have that much effect on our daily experience. And the fact that our daily life, everyone's daily life, can be compared to torture is more than a little concerning for me. It is, yeah, it has a bit of, ugh, to it. Well, friends, thank you for being here. Thank you, Just Me Crystal. Much love. Put it down and give you a real heart of diamonds. I hope everyone out there has a good day. Take care of yourself. Practice self-care. Don't just take care of yourself. Practice self-care. There we are. I can see me again. Let me throw that heart of diamonds up again for real for you there, Crystal. Much love to everybody, all the lurkers. Stick around for the raid, and I guess now is the time on the show when I say, as they say around here, 2 up, 2 down, VA, double deuces. I'm out, y'all.
Right now. D10G. Kick with an 808 kick, like an 8-bit kid, spin 8-bit love like that. Since the AOL chat, vampire room where you met me, got to know you on RRC, and I fell in love with the rhythm of your beat. It was geek love like nerds and heat, and I celebrated like D035 when I knew that you like me too. And then we ride the information super high. Spent days in a haze and nights in a daze with you on the screen of the old Dell with the intel inside. You were jacked up on George and now everything like, how do you hide from the world queen like? What do the symbols in the cartouche mean like? What made lights hit green? And I remember when you asked me, wanna make sleep mode do our dream? And I asked you.